Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on Bloodletting Monday. Bloody Monday. Man, you two did a great one Sunday, Bloody Sunday. It is Bloody Monday. Jimbo Fisher was fired last night. But what's surprising to me is that the guy who orchestrated and put that crap deal together, Ross Bjork, how does he even look people in the face without laughing? How does he still have a job? He is the one responsible for that $100 million disaster. Kevin Sumlin's laughing his ass off. Of course, he got $25 million when he was let go at Mississippi State. I mean, at Texas A&M. And golly, just listening to the crap come out of this guy's mouth. Give me a break. Stop even trying to justify. Well, he had that stern look on his face, looking right in the camera, and just saying, we do everything the right way at Mississippi State. I mean, at Texas A&M, because they fired their coach too, Zach Arnett. We're going to get to that in just a moment with Mitch Davis, the MitchDavisShow.com. But let me tell you something. That's ridiculous. We all knew it. We said it on the show back in the summer. Jackie Sherrill said it on the show 3 weeks ago. Well, one thing Ross Bjork was right about, A&M does deserve better. But for their fan base and the 12th Man Foundation, I mean, how pissed off would you be if you're giving money to the athletic department to fund scholarships and to help student athletes, and that money's used to cover up a second mistake in the litter box? I mean, A&M in this millennium has one double-digit win season. That was in 2012 when they caught lightning in a bottle with Johnny Manziel. And they deserve so much better. They've got a great fan base. You can't find anybody when they go out there that doesn't leave College Station going, man, that's a special place. So let me just spare everybody. This isn't let's bash A&M. What this is bashing the people at Texas A&M that put this deal together. I mean, Jimbo Fisher's laughing, and he's going to continue to laugh for the rest of his life when he buys an island somewhere in the Caribbean and he just lives out the rest of his life. He doesn't have to do anything the rest of his life. He got so much money. $76 million. Are you kidding me? And Ross Bjork, all these athletic directors and these administrators, they're all over every campus in America, and they're getting paid ridiculous amounts of money, a lot of them. For what? There's no accountability. And it's just ridiculous. Ross Bjork up there last night. You know what? He's starting to look just like Jimbo Fisher. It's not just me, but you know what? They're flushing money down the toilet at Texas A&M like the federal government. It's $50 billion here, $75 billion there. What's the difference? They can't even tell you what a project will cost. It'll be 75 to 100 billion. Yeah, that's because we don't know how many people we got to pay off. My God. If you are a fan of college football and you're sitting here going, holy cow, what is my school doing? What is my school doing? And you're going, what are we paying for? What are we paying for? And I would be mad as hell. You know what? Fans you're pushing fans to the absolute end of the cliff. All right. And Mitch Davis is on right now. And I'm going to tell you right now, what was the new movie, Network or Broadcasting, when the guy said, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." My God. If you're a Texas A&M fan and they have the nerve to ask you to give for scholarships and for priority seating and all, and then they just piss away $76 million to make another mistake go away. Damn it, hold these people accountable. Athletic directors, these administrators that get into the fetal position when some agent hotboxes them and says, "We've got to make this contract. We've got to do it or someone else will get him." By God, call their bluff and say, "You know what? Take that job. Take it. We'll find somebody else." And all these half-ass, half-wits that are out there say, "Well, you just can't be tough on kids today, and that's just the way it is." Oh, BS. Spare me the indignity of hearing that crap. Tough times don't last forever, but tough people do. We got way too many candy asses and soft people out here right now. God, I love what Lane Kiffin said to that kid for 30 days. Didn't answer his phone calls, didn't answer his emails, respond to his text. Let him have it. That's nothing but a shakedown by some guy trying to get money, in my opinion, from Ole Miss. If a guy has legitimate mental health issues, then deal with it. The resources are there. I am sick and tired of all these student athletes playing the victim role. I love what Lane Kiffin said, and I cannot repeat it on this show. The decorum prohibits it. But, Mitch, you know what I'm talking about. You don't answer your boss's calls for a month, respond to his emails and texts, you will find out that you are not in charge. We have got to stop letting the tail wag the dog. It is Bloody Monday with Mitch Davis from New Albany, Mississippi. Mitch, every time I think of New Albany, I think about those awesome cakes down there at Sugaree's or whatever it is.
Yes.
But look, man, I mean, I don't know. Someone else may be fired while we're on the show. But
so actually, Rob, we got some news, and sorry if I seem a little distracted. Per multiple reports, and I've confirmed it just now. Zach Arnett has been fired as the Mississippi State head football coach. So that literally just came across the news desk here. So as I'm on live radio trying to get stuff up on my website about Zach Arnett being fired. Welcome to crossover season, baby. It's it's interesting. Sorry, my phone's blowing up.
Yeah,
and this is what
time to turn the ringer off if you can, so it doesn't sound like a Christmas carol. But hey, here's the thing, Mitch. I saw the thing about Zach Arnett early this morning. The chatter starts coming. Okay, it's kind of like you hear the ducks in the distance, and they get closer and closer. Take them, Zach Arnett. Zach, what they did this year was coaching malpractice. That was ridiculous. I mean, Mississippi State, again, like A&M, what an incredible fan. Loyalty. That's all these land grant ag schools like A&M and Texas A&M and Mississippi State and Auburn. Their fan bases are so loyal and so passionate. And if I'm an A&M fan, they ought to have a massive boycott. Fill up Kyle Field. And say, we want the following people gone too. If you're going to get rid of Jimbo Fisher, get rid of the people, that orchestrated this and put this crap deal together. Same thing at Mississippi State. You know what? All Zach Arnett had to do was say, look, I've been here 3 years. I know how to run a defense to work with the air raid. We got Will Rogers. Let's keep doing what we're doing. He didn't have to try to make his own identity, own stamp on the program. You'll get all the success and everything you want out of life, as long as you don't care about who gets the credit.
Yeah. And Rob, this is the thing, and be honest with you, I think Zach Arnett's a great dude. I think he is a good dude. I think he's going to land on his feet as a defensive coordinator somewhere. Let's see. So I'm reading your comments too. Coaching search, when it happens and you cover the team, as you know, Rob, your phone just goes berserk. It is. Yeah. So it's like I'm doing radio, but I'm also try to do my job as well. It's kind of hectic this morning. But Zach Arnett's a great dude. He's going to land on his feet. However, when he took over at Mississippi State, he was given the keys to a very successful program. He was given the keys to a 9-win program. He was given the keys to a program that had beaten Ole Miss, that had beaten Illinois in the Outback Bowl, had beat A&M last season, and he ran it into the ground. And he made bad coaching decisions. He made bad coaching hires. Kevin Barbay is one of those guys that he was terrible. I mean, really, truthfully, Kevin Barbay was the worst offensive coordinator hire in the history of Mississippi State football. The guy wasted away talent. I mean, look at Will Rogers, and Will Rogers has been hurt. Then you go down the line and you start looking at Chris Parsons. You look at Mike Wright, and even Kevin Barbay did not use those guys in the system that those guys were intended to be used for. And it's just such a shame that Coach Arnett didn't work out, because he was a good dude. He was a Mike Leach guy. But the AD, Zach Selman, has come in here, and he made a hell of a hire with Chris Yans in basketball. And I fully expect him to make a home run hire for football. I don't know exactly who that's going to be. I was trying to work up some names over the weekend. But, Rob, things have happened personally with my grandfather, who's in the hospital with dementia stuff, and then also my father-in-law had a triple bypass on Wednesday night. So the last 4 or 5 days have been very hectic. So as far as coaching search goes, I don't know who's going to replace Zach Arnett. I don't know who's going to be the interim. I'm waiting for a text from the SID at Mississippi State to kind of come through, and we'll kind of process it from there, and then we'll just kind of see what happens. And, of course, I'll be in Starkville on Saturday afternoon for the Southern Miss game for Mississippi State.
Well, you do have a lot going on, and I absolutely, man, you're in my prayers, your family, for sure. And I'm going to tell you something. It's going to be the reason why these firings are happening after week 9 and week 10, very simple. You have December signing date. And as evidence, Exhibit A, when Auburn really just absolutely fumbled the ball when they got rid of Gus, and then there was an attempt to put Kevin Steele in. I love Kevin Steele. That didn't work. And Alan Green said, well, I need to hire the head football coach. He goes out and gets Brian Harsin. Said he met him in a hot tub 5 years earlier. Please, no more hot tub hires.
Yeah.
But he hires him, and he's not even introduced till Christmas Eve. Ironically, when he was fired, it was Halloween, less than 2 years into his tenure. Arguably, along with Tony Barbee, the 2 worst hires in Auburn history. But they missed that December signing period. All he got was what he got in February of 21. There's only one player from that first class even on the team anymore. That's a kid out of Neshoba County, Philadelphia, Mississippi, Jarquez Hunter. So you got to do it now, Mitch. You're right.
Yeah. And really, truthfully, I think that when Zach Arnett was hired, it was a tenacious time. It was a difficult time. There was no textbook how to go through the Mike Leach passing. I mean, there wasn't. Mike Leach meant so much to so many people. And, and Rob, I've shared on this show my stories with Coach Leach and how he called me in the middle of Wyoming to do a podcast interview. And he told me, he's like, I might lose you, but I'll call you back, And so Coach Leach and I ended up playing phone tag and going on and off for about 2.5, 3 hours on a random June afternoon. And that was Coach Leach. However, as sad and as crazy as it sounds, there was no more excuses left to be made for Zach Arnett. There was no more, the Bulldog mentality. We're buying into this program, whatever. Because the truth is that wasn't happening. The Bulldog mentality was gone. The guys they had on that roster were used to playing in one system, and that's what they were recruited to do. Will Rogers was recruited to play in the air raid, to Lou Griffin, Xavier Thomas, Jaden Wally was recruited to play in an air raid system. And then when you get Zach Arnett, who brought in his own staff and brought in his own offensive line, which is his right, that's what he wanted to do. It's a risk, but it didn't work out. And it is what it is. I do hope that Mississippi State retains some capacity. Chad Bumpus, the former Mississippi State Bulldog, he is a great dude. I think he represents Mississippi State well. As far as the rest of the staff goes, you got to clean house. You got to start over. I'm trying to think of replacements for Zach Arnett. Mike Elko at Duke comes to mind unless Texas A&M gets to him first. Then you go down the line. I've heard some people want Gus Malzahn, which I don't think would be great.
Please, A&M. Yes. They should take him at Texas. Absolutely, they should take him at A&M. Take him. And remember Henny Youngman? Hey, take my wife. Seriously, take her.
And Rob, what's so crazy about this Mississippi State thing is there's so much momentum on campus right now. They're 2 years removed from a national championship in baseball. The women's basketball is legitimately going to be a Final Four national championship contender this year in women's basketball. Men's basketball, look at what they're doing in men's basketball, getting to the NCAA tournament. And Chris Jans has got a hell of a basketball team right now. Then you go over to women's soccer, who's competing in the NCAA tournament, 6th ranked national team in the country right now. And they go out to play, I think, Browne on the 15th. I think it was 15th. So a lot of momentum is building in Starkville. Zach Selman's doing a great job. They just renovated the hump. I really feel like Zach Selman is the right athletic director. It's just a matter of time who he wants to get in here. He's got 2 or 3 weeks before signing day.
Yeah, you're getting a little bit of a kind of like R2-D2 on the original Star Wars movie. I don't know what the connection is. It may be the Minders because we're being critical. Because if you watch SEC Network, nobody ever lowers the hammer and just lowers the boom on any of these guys. They all want to be buddies. What's up, bro? I mean, come on, stop all that crap and quit wearing skinny jeans on TV. I mean, man up. I love Takeo Spikes. He wears blue jeans, cowboy boots, and a blazer. Roman Harper. I mean, these other guys, seriously, man, think about your manhood. Start lowering the boom. Jimbo Fisher. I don't care if you like him or not. Your job is not to be friends with these coaches. Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net. I cover the Razorbacks. I cannot let my personal feelings get in the way of me doing my job. The people that allowed this mess at Mississippi State. And I know you mentioned all the other sports. That baseball national championship is getting further and further in the rearview mirror. The last 2 years, State has failed to even make postseason play. Inexcusable, okay? And that is because you've got people that almost are protected job class. I don't work in a business like that. You know what? You produce or your ass is out the door. And you don't get a 2-week notice. When you leave, you're gone within minutes. I mean, if you're going to another firm, it's the real world. And I'm going to tell you, Mississippi State, they've raised a lot of money. They've raised their profile. They do. They've got an honors college there. There's very attractive school. All that aside, Zach Arnett could go in there right now and to try to keep his job, even though they fired him, say, my students have the highest GPA. I have 7 architecture majors, several mechanical engineering majors, several pre-med majors. They're going to go, Zach, look at the record. Again, you can talk all you want, people. Football is what makes the grass grow. And all this, if we're ever going to do anything, maybe make college football, you can have all this national stuff. That's okay. But the non-revenue sports, it's cruel and unusual punishment to force the Rutgers volleyball team to go on a Tuesday night and play at Southern Cal.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, it's all about money. And I know money, we got to have it. Don't get me wrong. I'm a capitalist. I'm a right-wing patriot. But Mitch, you're smart. You mentioned all those other sports. But the people that hired Zach Arnett, you hired him. You created this mess. You go fix it. That's what the column would be if I were you and I were writing right now, is who's going to be held accountable? Because we have no accountability in our society anymore. Just at Ross Bjork, keeping a straight face, talking about Jimbo. I mean, how does he do it? The guy, is he a professional poker player?
Well, and Rob, the unique thing about Mississippi State, and normally I'm quick to say, hey, this person deserves to blame. But at the time when Zach Arnett was hired, Mississippi State didn't have an athletics director. They didn't have somebody in that athletics department who knew what they were doing. They tried to put a Band-Aid on the situation, which, look, I get it. I understand what happened. The president, Mark Keenum, took over and he said, hey, look, I don't have an athletics director. I don't have, that person to do this decision. He made the best decision in that moment. Do I think he should have hired him full time and after the bowl game? No. But at that time, Mississippi State needed to fix or heal the wound a little bit. So yes and no, people should be held accountable in this circumstance. I think it was just they had to do what they had to do to get by. And Zach Arnett won the bowl game. The players seemed to like him. He said all the right things. At that time, you didn't really have it. There wasn't enough time to go out there and do a national search. I mean, Coach Leach died the second week of December. Signing day was a week later, so they had to keep the staff that they had, or at least one of the guys they had on staff to retain some of those players. So it was a really crapped up, messed up situation for Mississippi State.
Yeah. Now you're breaking up. I don't know what if you're near some wires or the metal plate. And I don't know what it's. But let me say this again. I wanted to hear you out. But look at this. Raymond in Huntsville. Has there ever been a game where both coaches were fired after the game? This is historical precedence that we've just set. I mean, this is how ridiculous this thing is. Now, you go back and you look. The one thing, and, no one's even talking about it, but has there ever been a game where both coaches were fired after the game? I do know of a bowl game, the 1970 Gator Bowl, Auburn versus Ole Miss. Shug Jordan had an emergency appendectomy and could not coach. Paul Davis, a Mississippi State alum, coached for Auburn in that game. And Johnny Vaught had a heart attack, and Bruiser Kennard, one of the great names of all time, was the coach in that game. Auburn won 35-28. Pat Sullivan versus Archie Manning. Archie played with his arm in a cast. Him and Pat Sullivan, after the game, that was just such a great embrace of sportsmanship. That's what we love about sports. But Raymond is right. This is historical precedent. And I made a point Saturday to say that the game in College Station, was one of the, someone said it's the biggest game of the day, but I called it the Fire Bowl. Someone's going to be fired, but both coaches were fired. Now, you know what I would have done if I was Mississippi State? Mark Keenum is the longest tenured president of a school in the SEC. I would have called Jackie Sherrill and said, Coach, I need your advice. You know where the coaches are. It's like Tommy Tuberville said, Jimmy Johnson and Dennis Erickson taught him how to always have the top 5 assistants at every position in America, their names, their phone numbers, and everything in your back pocket. Mississippi State made a panic hire, and it hurt them. But there's no excuse to say we didn't have an athletic director. These people get paid a lot of money. The failure in leadership. Everybody remembers when Ronald Reagan was shot in March of 81. Alexander Haig goes in there. I'm in charge. Everything's under control. I mean, everybody remembers that. But that's what nobody took the leadership role. And look where they are. As tragic as it was, everybody was horrible for Mike Leach. But I'd be writing columns about holding the people accountable, the vacuum in leadership. Nobody is held accountable anymore. It's lying has become the norm, and that's unacceptable. Your honor is dearer than your life. Get after their ass, Mitch. If I were you, I'd be writing columns and holding people. You know what? You're not going to be popular. Some people are going to hate you. But you know what? True grit journalism, sometimes you're going to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I'm going to probably, as soon as I get off here in 5 minutes, I'm going to log into my work laptop and also kind of write this article. And I don't know what's going on with my audio today. Like I said, this last 4 or 5 days, Rob, it feels like if something is going to go wrong, it has gone wrong. So
no, don't worry about it. I'm getting people.
I apologize to the listeners. Hopefully, I can come back on later in the week. But it is going to be a very interesting time for Mississippi State. I'm sitting here trying to wrap my mind around, okay, who is going to be the next coaching? Who do they go after? Jeff Libby comes to mind. I think that would be a heck of a hire. Lance Leopold at Kansas would be a good hire. I think he'd be a home run. I think he would leave Kansas to come to the SEC, to go to a hotbed like Mississippi State. Of course, you go Mike Elko at Duke. I think he would be a fun hire. I see Maury Gadsden asked about Texas A&M and Bobby Petrino. Bobby Petrino, he's
a nice guy. He's a family man.
I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but Bobby Petrino wouldn't be a bad hire for Mississippi State. I'm just going to throw that out there. So those guys would be contacted. Obviously, you got Jeff Taylor at UTSA, which I think would be a fun hire. Gus Malzahn would be interesting. I think he would do well at Mississippi State, just like he did well at Auburn. I think he just kind of overstayed his welcome at Auburn, and it just kind of ran out. I would also look at maybe Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen would more than likely come back to Starkville to coach at Mississippi State. So
that was the perfect fit. Yeah. Jackie Sherrill, what he did was incredible. But he went heavy on the junior college at the end. He probably wishes he hadn't have done that. But, man, he woke him up to spending money. And Dan Mullen, he's an offensive genius. You can't argue that. But you know what? You mentioned Bobby Petrino, a family man, a kind man. And he should enjoys a good ride on a motorcycle. But you know what? The guy can flat out coach.
Yeah.
He can. And Mitch, I'm looking forward to seeing some just crackerjack columns coming out of you. I mean, today. Don't hold back. Trying to make yourself less of a big deal or less of a, of a winner, or to make other people around you feel less uncomfortable is a disservice. Yeah. Let her rip, man. People in America are craving columns about accountability. Too much of this buddy. Look, you can look people in the eye and say, if I was talking to Ross Bjork now, I'd say, how can you justify keeping your job? Yeah. In my business, we hire and fire portfolio managers. If they're not doing the job, they're gone. We go find other ones. That's called the free market.
There is going to be a lot of interesting things come out of Mississippi State. And I'm going to encourage, I know I got a minute or two left. I would encourage your readers to follow me on Twitter, MitchDavis_8. My website, themitchdavisshow.com. And then also, if you don't want to follow me, follow Robbie Falk at 24/7 at Gene's pages. Robbie is a good friend of mine. He is a hell of a Mississippi State writer, podcast host, and Robbie has really kind of taken me under the wing and kind of been a friend and a mentor getting into this, not only Mississippi State market, but also the state of Mississippi and kind of covering the state of Mississippi. One thing to watch out for, Rob, I'm going to throw this out there. We didn't get talk much about Ole Miss today, but watch out for Lane Kiffin. I have heard his name mentioned a few times for the A&M position. I don't know exactly how much fire there is for that, but there is a certain amount of talk about it because I think he realizes that Ole Miss, he has done about all that he can do, gets Ole Miss in New Year's Six Bowl. Unfortunately, he is just behind the eight ball with NIL money, with products in the state. If he goes to Texas A&M, he would have unlimited resources, unlimited funding. So that's a name to watch out for Texas A&M. So, Again, follow me on Twitter, MitchDavis_8, themitchdavisshow.com. I'm going to be busy. As soon as I get off here, we're going to try to write something about Zach Arnett's leading Mississippi State. So,
and I'll just say this. Casey Goodjohn, A&M, this reminds me as a kid of throwing rocks at a hornet's nest just to see what happens. And A&M's fan base, like Mississippi State, and I'm going to talk about just A&M here, is incredible. Casey's one of them. Okay, lives out in Claiborne County, Texas. But I know a lot of A&M fans. They love that school, but it's like they're not listened to. So you know what? Got to get them a coach. They've got everything you need. If money can solve it, it's not really a problem. It's beyond money. But Mitch, look, thanks for being on here. Great stuff. I hope and pray everything works out with the issues you got going on. But we'll get you back on here later in the week. I'm looking forward to your columns. Hold people accountable. No free rides. You know, you're not trying to be friends with these people, trying to get the truth out. Be a truth broker. And it's going to be fun to read your stuff. You're going to write the column of the day.
I appreciate it, Rob. Thank you for having me on, and I will catch y'all later in the week. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you, and I'm bringing in somebody, Buford Pusser here right now, Doug Dean down there in Birmingham. Doug, great stuff there with Mitch Davis of the MitchDavisShow.com. And as we were preparing for the show this morning, and I was up last night till about 11 doing some research and all, and the Zach Arnett story broke. But we talked about it on the show the other day. Crazy.
Is Arnett out?
Yeah, he's out. Yeah. Yeah.
That was a possibility as their season progressed. It's almost not fair to Zach that you go through that traumatic a reason for the transition, and as beloved as Leach was. But I think, when you have Kiffin and you're in the shadow of Ole Miss more and more right now,
yeah.
you can't waste time. You don't have a year to waste.
No, you don't. And we talked about it on the show Saturday. Dave Tompkins, Frank Duffy, you, me, Kevin Skarbinski. Yancey Porter was not able to get through. He was over there in that mess in Athens. And, that's another story we'll get to later, the Ole Miss Georgia game. But you look at Zach Arnett, and Mitch just pointed out they didn't have an athletic director. It was John Cohen had just gone over to Auburn. But that doesn't excuse the vacuum in leadership. When you're paid the kind of money that you are in my world, I mean, we hire portfolio managers, and they're graded, green, yellow, red. If you're not getting the job done, you're just fired and you're replaced with other people. That's the free market. But Dr. Keenum, who's the longest tenured president at Mississippi State, Mark Keenum, we didn't have an athletic. They had to do something. It was terrible. Mike Leach died. You wanted to keep the team together, but you should have just made him interim coach for a year just to test drive him before you made that kind of an investment, just like buying a vehicle. So in A&M, in that case, Doug, you and I both know their fan base they're some of the best people you'll ever meet. Everyone I talk to that goes to College Station is like, oh my God, those are the nicest people. They love that school. So all this, not rage, but I'm just saying, watching Ross Bjork in that press conference last night, keep a straight face is like watching the press secretary, Jean-Pierre, whatever, for Joe Biden every day. I mean, how does she keep a straight face? President Biden ran 5 miles this morning and scored a 36 on the Wonderlic test. Yeah, seriously. I mean, come on. Nobody's going to believe that. I mean, he's a living brain donor. But anyway, let's get to this, man. There's a lot going on in college football. There was a game played. You and I talked about this Saturday, and you talked about the Arkansas winning on the road at Florida. And in the stock market, we call it a dead cat bounce. You called it a false positive.
Yep,
and
that was prophetic, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're very prophetic. But, Auburn jumped on top and didn't let go. I wonder where Auburn would be. And I know this question everybody's asking. I wonder where they would be if Peyton Thorne had been the quarterback for the full 60 in every game this season. Curious.
Well, we wouldn't. Good morning to you, Rob, Audrey, all the listening audience. You almost you almost feel guilty in terms of my guess of what's on people's mind, what they're most interested in, and that would be the coaching carousel, which is going to strike pretty hard in the SEC. We can now declare, but you feel guilty talking about actual football games Saturday. There's 3 of them that were pretty important, ended up being blowouts. Georgia sure looks like they can stake a claim to being the most dominant team in football now that Brock Bowers is back. Alabama might have their own disagreement with that, as complete as they looked, just disassembling a decent, not a great, but a decent Kentucky team. And, for those, even though they're playing we're playing for bowl eligibility, you ask any coach and program that's rebuilding, that is a bigger deal than meets the eye for morale, for extra practices. So that Auburn road win, 48-10 over an Arkansas team that was really excited coming off that first ever road win in Gainesville in overtime. And they get Rocket Sanders back at running back, and leading up to the game, you know how the pundits get it wrong year in, year out. The talk was how KJ Jefferson was so elite and that Peyton Thorne should not be mentioned in the same breath with him. And Peyton Thorne, the opening drive, Rob, forgive me being a homer, that was a Picasso, I'm telling you. I don't care if the opponent was Arkansas. The play calling and execution on that first drive was an absolute Picasso ending. And the most important play was that tunnel screen to Caleb Burton. It's great to see what Hugh Freeze and Montgomery have brought to the table. We used to throw the tunnel screen for a guaranteed 2-yard loss. Now they've figured out when to call it, how to use deception to open it up, and blocking and setting that up. Caleb Burton scoots down the middle of the field for 45 yards. And then the coup de grace, Peyton Thorne is channeling his inner Cam Newton out of nowhere. He just runs over that. He didn't just score. He, on a brilliant play call, he ran over the defender at the goal line and turned around and looked at him.
Yes.
Which I thought was good to see. So I couldn't help but have this song, this rap song in my head, Rob, that was featured in the opening of the great movie Office Space. And it is, damn, it feels good to be a gangster. That Auburn team played like they were mad at somebody, didn't they?
They did. They came out with attitude, and they controlled everything that they could. And you look at it, and I like this comment from Kerry Jones up in Gallatin, Tennessee, or Lebanon. Rob, did you enjoy your barbecue pig Saturday? Mine was wonderful. Iron Bowl in 2 weeks. As I've heard it said before, now we got a game. Well, you look at this game, and to me, I'm looking at Arkansas, and we're going to have Wess more on in the next hour. But is it fixable now? Because it looked to me like Arkansas, after Auburn punched them repeatedly in the first quarter, right in the face, and a kick in the groin or two, they didn't fight back. I was shocked to see that, because living in Memphis, we got a lot of Arkansas friends, and believe me, we were with some of them Saturday, and golly. But shout out to Robert Hill and his 11-year-old son, Aiden, got a 12-point, 172-pound deer in the slug season in Arkansas. 7 minutes after he got in the deer stand Saturday. So his hogs didn't win, but he brought home the venison.
Yeah, he picked a good Saturday to go deer hunting if you yell pig suey. And weird, Auburn has had some bad seasons in recent years, but they mostly, when they go on the road to Arkansas, have rung up a lot of points. And I don't. It's not that Auburn has Arkansas's number. I still have memories or post-traumatic stress of Fred Talley running past my window. Ran like 300 yards on Tuberville. So Arkansas is capable. I'll let Arkansas fans decide what they believe their current ceiling is as a program, except to say Petrino showed them they can. Was it 10 wins? Houston Nutt showed them they can win 10 games, make the SEC championship game. So why shouldn't they think big like that? But I'll be surprised if Sam Pittman is back next year. Is there any news breaking on that?
No, not yet in the last few minutes. But, Doug, this is what I'm going to ask you because you're somewhat clairvoyant. When he comes out in his opening comments, they just whipped us in every phase of the game. But at least your job as the head coach to make sure that doesn't happen. When you're making 5, 6, 7 million, 10 million a year, everything is on you. You're in exchange for that money, you've got to lead. And that's what shocked me was the line of scrimmage, both lines of scrimmage. And remember, as bad as Auburn fans and people, this is as bad as Auburn's going to be probably for a long time. To borrow the line from Deion Sanders, but I think they could be worse. But after they got beat by Oregon, Auburn is still number 16 in the nation on the blue chip index of talent. More than 50% of the roster is 4- and 5-star players. And now you saw not much has been talked about Auburn flipping the big commitment of Florida as the number 1 or 2 player in Mississippi, Jamonte Walker. Talk about that, how big a deal that is.
Waller has been Auburn's number 1 target at pass rusher. And, it's we as fans, as gentlemanly people, we can be irritated that commitment doesn't mean much until signing day. But these coaches, and all of them do it. If they've got a target and the kid is willing to talk to them, they can announce a commitment to Texas A&M. Hey, shout out to Cam Coleman. His head coach is not there anymore. That's the great wide receiver out of Phoenix City that still, I think, likes Auburn. I think Auburn in the end might flip him, 5-star wide receiver. That would make Auburn's wide receiver class, if we don't lose any of these commitments, possibly number 1 wide receiver class in the nation. I'd have to look at who else is up there, but you already got Perry Thompson, Bryce Kane, the kid out of Alex City, and I'm forgetting another one.
Malcolm Simmons.
Yeah, Malcolm Simmons. So, and he may prove to be the surprise talent when they get on the practice field. So back to Waller, they stay on him, and he always liked Auburn. And, we've talked all season about these programs like Florida, Auburn, others that are rebuilding. It's the proof of concept. Rob, I would say that decisive, complete game in all 3 phases in Fayetteville Saturday, that's proof of concept. They liked Auburn anyway, but if they're coming to Auburn now, what they wanted to see, and who can blame them, am I going to be coached well? Are we going to look good? Do I like the offense they're running? Will I get touches? Well, you saw all of that, and Auburn is quietly now, Rob, the number 9 team in the nation in rushing yards, but with only LSU and Tennessee ahead of them from the SEC. And yet we're mixing passes in. Peyton Thorne just looks very composed. Now, in a couple of weeks, Rob, it'll be harder to look and act composed when you're going up against those savages that Saban is putting on the field. But, doesn't it feel completely different? And like I was saying, damn, it feels good to be a gangster. That vibe when you're almost certainly going to be 7-4 going into the Iron Bowl with it in Jordan-Hare Stadium. That is going to be absolutely at a fever pitch if things set up like the way they look like they are.
Well, it will be. And you got to take care of the Aggies, New Mexico State. I mean, they're not bad. I've seen them. That's all you got to do. But
That could
a couple
be
of things.
Yeah.
Well, here's a couple of things I've seen that have happened. One, I think Hugh Freeze has been able to.
He's taken over.
He's taken over. He's calling plays again. And because McGriff is now helping with recruiting and accountability, that's huge. And then Kent Austin, I'm telling you, I've been watching this guy since the fall of 81 when Brentwood Academy came down here and beat MUS 35-7 with Kent Austin as the quarterback and Jimmy Hockaday was his tight end. Hockaday went to Georgia, Kent to Ole Miss. He is Freeze's trusted lieutenant. And he's an analyst right now at Auburn. But when Kent Austin starts getting more involved and Hugh Freeze, you're going to see Auburn's offense be what these elite teams in the country have. And you mentioned the receivers. Perry Thompson out of Foley. They're already out. They're not even in the playoffs this year, unfortunately. He had a pretty good year. Bryce Kane out of Baker in Mobile. They played against each other. Jason Caldwell did a great story about the two of them playing against each other. And you mentioned Malcolm Simmons out of Benjamin Russell in Alex City. But here's the wild card. Ryan Williams, who Jason Caldwell thinks will be the number one player in America, class of 25, might reclassify. What if you get all those guys and
he's the one
Cam Coleman from Phoenix City?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I left out the very best one, at least based on their performance in high school and coaches and evaluators you talk to. You're right. If Auburn can flip Ryan Williams by him reclassifying to class of 24, then I almost start to worry about hanging on to all five of those receivers, Rob, because they understandably would be asking themselves, is this going to threaten my playing time having such a crowded wide receiver room? And what Freeze will sell them on is, no, you need to come. We've got a guy that can throw. We've got other QBs coming in like Walker White. And during your 2 to 3 year career here, we're going to be getting you the ball, and you've seen that we're capable of doing that, and we're only warming up. So it's pretty impressive that despite the losing 4-game stretch, Freeze and this staff has continued to be successful overall at selling players, elite recruits on considering Auburn as their destination. Yeah.
And you know what I see with Hugh Freeze, I mean, the criticism of him has been little stuff like, don't complain about having to go to Cal, embrace it and say, this is going to be a great road trip. Go see a bunch of people in California and ride around on the BART. And, it's fun, but I just know, in fact, the guy, Robert Hill, one of our members of a cherry farm, they farm lots of land around here. He's, lives in Memphis, like a lot of these guys do, because we're right outside of Memphis. And he played for Hugh Freeze at Briarcrest. And he said, let me tell you something. He goes, you think that guy is some nice hunky? No, he goes, he'll get after your ass. He said, I'll just say this. He will get your attention. And he's a fun, everybody likes him. He said, but don't ever doubt his ferocity. And he said, and he is so dialed in on being a champion in everything. I don't care if it's girls basketball, volleyball, whatever. But I know a lot. I'm finding more and more of my friends' kids who went to Briarcrest that played for Freeze, and I'm learning a lot about him. And Mitch Davis, his grandfather, Dr. Russell, is the one who hired him at Briarcrest. Now, he's not perfect. We know what he's done wrong, but I think that might be what makes him very appealing to people, is going, what made Rush Limbaugh such a success was he'd been fired half a dozen times, didn't finish college, and he just kept fighting, kept laying his guts on the line. As Coach Dye would say, again and again and again. Sometimes you come up empty-handed, ain't a damn thing you can do about it except fight. That's what we love about coaches. And they just say, hey, look, here's what I did wrong. People don't have to dig on Freeze. It's out there.
Yeah.
Doug, you're right. I like what Carrie said about you. Did you read that? Nice comments.
What's that? Let's see. You're going to have to read the small print.
He just said my question exactly, Rob. I really believe Auburn would be no worse than 8-2, probably 9-1, with a winner goes to Atlanta in the Iron Bowl. Really enjoy Doug Dean. Very smart guy. Maybe you're the James Bond of this show.
I can't believe my mom is going by the name Carrie on the interweb. But no, thanks for the kind words, Carrie. I'm not smart, but I do obsess, like almost everybody in earshot of here, obsess about the vagaries and twists and turns of college football. And Rob, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about dominoes. I speak not of the actual game with those little white dots on black squares, but think about this. My God, I was going to say this just from Jimbo Fisher being out. The dominoes start falling, and this, I think, is poised to be one of the biggest shuffling of the head football coaching deck in some time, because if Jimbo's out, who is hired? You're going to hear about Jeff Traylor at UTSA. He's got ties in Texas. You're going to hear about Lance Leopold at Kansas. That would probably be a guy I'd want to interview if I'm Texas A&M, because, man, if you can win at Texas, it's just like the song New York, New York. If you can make it here, Rob, you can make it anywhere. And and a name that is a little bit off the radar that I'm not so sure Aggie fans shouldn't keep an eye on is Cliff Kingsbury. I realize he had a rough go at Texas Tech, but they're going to remember him. He would be beloved from that 2012 Johnny football season they had under Kevin Sumlin. And there'll be a bunch of other names. Mike Elko is going to be the coach everybody talks about. I don't know if he's got an eye on Michigan State, or would he stay at Duke? I think he'd be making a career mistake not to jump on this. But now you add to it, Zach Arnett being out, Sam Pittman possibly being out. I'd be surprised if Arkansas has the appetite for another year at that, because you're going to start falling behind. You can get negatively recruited that your coach is not going to be there very long, because we saw that with Gus and Harsin. So, look, it could be as many as 12 to 15 Power 5 openings in college football this year, Rob.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned about a month ago on the show about a profile that you use in hiring.
Yeah.
That could apply in coaching. Audrey uses this body language index. She's a psychology major. I mean, it's amazing. In the first game of the season, she said, y'all are playing two guys. One is the guy who moves the ball. It's that simple. And sometimes, we try to, but talk about the profile of hiring a coach that fits where he's going, because at A&M, you're going to have to deal with a room full of J.R. Ewings every time you want something done. They got money, but you're going to have all these people are bench pressing their wallets in public.
Yeah, well, I honestly, when you consider that all of these great college football programs are at institutions of higher learning, and I know without even researching it, they almost all have a psychology department, a human development department. So they know about these scientifically validated assessments. The one we use at my company with great success, it's been documented over 15 years, is called the Judgment Index. These cats are out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, of all places. And it was used a particular year to help assemble a Ryder Cup team that they didn't just go by handicaps and recent major championship wins, but they went by, how do you assemble a team that really is going to thrive and work together? So there are three domains, and these schools that are hiring coaches, besides just listening to Jimmy Sexton, his head's got to be spinning, Rob, at the dominoes, because he represents, I would bet, 3/4 of the Power 5 candidates that are going to get vetted. And anyway, you're looking at three domains: skill at interpersonal relationships, and there are many facets to that. Strategic thinking, the ability to see the big picture architecture of things so you don't make mistakes like Harsin did, thinking that you didn't have to recruit yourself, that you could just assign that to the staff. And then thirdly, the work, someone who has a work ethic like Saban and some others, that they don't feel like they have to work. They love to work, and they will outwork. It's like Coach Dye said, you're going to have a lot of competition 40 hours a week, Rob, but if you're willing to put in 60 hours, you've got almost no competition. So those three are the major domains, and there's a lot more moving parts to it. But your big point is these schools should engage help getting an assessment. So they should never be hiring a coach and act surprised that he creates a controversy, belittles a player, can't retain talented staff. Those things should never happen if you do your homework in the pre-hire assessment.
Yeah, and people don't realize what you just said, how critical that is. And you want to see a coach who's done a lot with limited resources, but at the same time, don't assume just because you give him unbelievable / unlimited resources that will automatically equate to success. Sometimes it can equate to they just quit trying. I think you can pay people too much money. I've seen it in my business.
Yeah.
People go from one firm to another, and it's you better watch it. If you don't stay hungry, you're not going to get better.
Yeah, and the punchline or the narrative about Texas A&M, with good reason, with all of their oil money and their amazing Aggie foundation, a 12th man foundation that's loaded. They're going to have a $76 million dent put in that foundation in the days ahead. But, I don't think they had any choice. I actually applaud Bjork for that board for making a move boldly and not sitting hoping that it fixes itself. But if you look at it, there was a punchline. How long is a 10-year contract in Aggie land, Rob? 6 years. And harsh but true. So I think what people are going to miss because they don't look at the fine print. Dan Lanning at Oregon is off the table at Texas A&M because he's got some insane buyout at Oregon. I'm not so sure he wouldn't want to keep his potential option to succeed Nick Saban in play. And I'm not saying Alabama has already started offering shortlisters. That'd be ridiculous. But, agents like Sexton have a funny way of getting whispers to clients about what may happen in the future. And that's part of being a super agent. So I think Lanning is out of the picture because even though Texas A&M has oil money, when you've just gone to the Regents for $76 million when they agreed to it, I suspect unanimously, I think they're going to feel queasy if you're going back to market wanting to get another $60 million guaranteed money on the table again without any certainty that the next coach is going to work out. A&M, which Auburn people can commiserate in, has had about 10 coaching changes in the last 53 years. Now, at Auburn, since Coach died, Auburn has had 7, and all of that was self-inflicted for the most part. So, but I think continuity is valuable, and A&M is about to get raided for some talented recruits because it's a cold, hard world in recruiting.
It is. It is a very hard deal in recruiting. And I will say this, though. Fans want to win, and I like this Weird Harold in West Point, Georgia, with the Kia plant. Kia of Auburn, Coach Dye, that was a sponsor of his. Auburn is positioned for future success. Look where they are. Patrick Nix, Bo's father, is the coach at Phoenix City Central. There's probably 30 Division I prospects on that roster. And there's no excuse if you're not winning at least 8 or 9 games a year there at Auburn. And I'll say this, the profile of what you want in a coach, it doesn't change, does it, Doug?
No, and, I think on some moral, societal level, if we were all having a cocktail and having a serious, thoughtful discussion, we might agree that the amount of money we pour into a pastime like college football or basketball borders on immoral. But, we could say the same thing about the amount of money people spend on iPhones and applications related to it. It's the world we live in. So you have to decide, are we going to have big time athletics? If you're going to have football and basketball, then you absolutely need to play to win. And that starts with pouring money into it. NIL, the rich are going to get richer. It's just that now there'll be some new programs entering the scene that have not recruited like Alabama and Georgia, Ohio State. They will now because it's all about, publicly disclosed NIL deals.
Yeah, and the question was brought up Saturday, a bunch of us watching football over at the farm, and it was, why are there not as many elite teams or great teams? And I said, well, one thing is, with NIL and the portal combined, guys don't stick around that long to be developed. They go for an audition, they go for a tryout. They read a few lines on a script for the movie. Next. It just keeps going till something sticks. That's a problem. But I think the free market will fix it. But look at Clemson. You have to adapt or you'll die. It's that simple. And Franz Beard's joining us, here in the top of hour number 2. And Doug, I'm going to tell you something, man. The zealousness of fans to be successful. You got to think like in a portfolio. I mean, I have clients. I keep talking about some of them. I remember buying stuff in late February, early March of 2020. And I said, hang in there. When would you rather be buying shares? When the market's way up or the market's way down? Trust me, right now, I know the nightly news is going to tell you the earth is going to stop spinning off of its axis and just roll off the table. The Flat Earth Society was having a big recruitment drive at that time, and everything was so bad. It's always darkest before dawn. And I think what you see happening is in college football, it's the same thing. You got to have a plan, and you got to stick with it.
Good to see you, Franz. Before I check out in a minute, I want to hear your take on Gator Nation. But, Rob, to just add a little more juice to the coaching carousel discussion, it's my prediction would be that Harbaugh stays at Michigan, but we don't know what's going to come out in the NCAA investigation, and it could put a lot of pressure on Michigan leadership, even though he's a favorite son, to make a move. You may also hear about, in the scorched earth scenario, Ohio State culpability with signal stealing come out, and some of that may be rumor and innuendo just to try to create a threat. And you can bet that the Big Ten does not want to have their 2 flagship programs in major PR disasters heading into conference expansion next year. Add to it, is James Franklin, are they getting restless about his complete inability to win the really big games? They fired OC Mike Yurcich with 2 games left. The old buy yourself a year by firing a coordinator. And I want to shout out to Dave Aranda at Baylor, who's sitting 3-7. That how does it feel now that you fired Ron Roberts when he's taking bubblegum and bailing wire, Rob, and creating an Auburn defense that's leading SEC in third down yards, stops. So red zone defense, and Auburn's defense is not Georgia or Alabama, but what he's getting out of them, Ron Roberts should be considered for defensive coordinator of the year in the SEC. That'll go to probably the winner of the Alabama-Georgia game would be my guess. But does prime time stay put? Franz, I'll leave it to you to say, how committed is and should Florida Nation, Gator Nation be with Coach Napier. I think he's doing enough in recruiting and had some big wins this year that it's not the time to cut bait. But your thoughts on the entire national picture and Florida specifically, Franz?
Well, I'll start with this. First off, I want to congratulate Rob Browne's Auburn Tigers because, what was it 3 weeks ago? Everybody was saying that Hugh Freeze can't coach a lick. What did we do? He should have stayed at Liberty. Now they're saying, well, SEC Coach of the Year. He's done a great job. Billy Napier is fine for now. Good. Everybody's restless about it, but he's fine for now. And he's probably fine through next year, too. But I'm going to tell you what, Jordan Herman transferred out today. Announced it yesterday. Now, he's only played in 1 ball game. But I think they've already told guys, look, we've got 77 guys on scholarship who are underclassmen. We only going to lose eight. We've already got a recruiting class of about 20. Okay, that's 97. and we're going to need about 15 transfers. That's 112. So what does that mean? 27 guys have got to go. And and these guys know it. This is the one thing. Rob's right about the market. You know, guys get on there and they get stuck, and it's year 3, and they've seen the field for 22 snaps total. They get the impression, well, you know what? Maybe I'd do well in the Sun Belt. Maybe I'd do well in the MAC. You know, but I'm not going to get it done here. The one good thing about competition is this, and I know people complain about the portal, but the portal gives and the portal takes away. Lane Kiffin doesn't have a lot to work with when it comes to the kind of money that they've got at Alabama, the kind of traditions, you know, you name it, he ain't got it. But Lane Kiffin is 8-2 with the 13th ranked team in the country. I would suspect he's going to finish 10-2, which is a tremendous season. And the reason he's going to do it is because of the transfer portal. And that's what these guys have better embrace. Life has changed this chaos. Jimbo got fired. The Aggies sit there and we all say, whoa, what a big amount of money. Trust me, they made probably 5 phone calls and got the check in the mail already to pay for that. 77, only God and the Longhorns have more money than the Aggies. And if the price of oil goes the right way, maybe none of them. But you know, we're going to see more of this. I mean, I want to read you. This is from my column today. Here are just a few buyouts for you, everybody. Kirby Smart, $92,625,000. Brian Kelly, $70,018,033. James Franklin, $64,666,667. Dabo, $64 million. Matt Rule, $62,500. Mark Stoops, $51,187,500. Josh Heupel, $46,500,000. Ryan Day, $46,222,222. Nick Saban is a buyout bargain at $44,800,000. He is a cheapie any way you look at it.
Franz, let me interject there. Nick Saban is especially a bargain since there is 0 chance you would ever write that buyout check.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. And here's the point of this. It's going to take some crashing and burning, the same way it's going to take in NIL. You know, we're sitting there saying, how can you pay $9 million for a quarterback who has sat this year behind Joe Milton, who is about as good as, you know, boobs on a boar hog, you know?
Yep.
But they did it at Tennessee, and they're going to have to find out next year if it's worth it. And if he's a bust as a redshirt freshman next year, I don't think he will be. But if he is, then there's going to be some crashing and burning on the market. And it's going to happen in a lot of places because trust me when I tell you, there are so many coaches that they've overspent on. Now, a lot of people say that was because of the COVID year that it happened, that everybody, you know, overspent because of COVID and all this other stuff, and they got panicky about the situation. It's ridiculous. It's not that COVID, you know, everybody wants something to blame. The only thing that's to blame is on boosters who have more money than they've got brains, and they're willing to spend for a football coach. You realize Lane Kiffin makes $9.5 million a year? That's a lot of money, guys.
Yeah,
that's slightly more than Doug Dean makes, and I mean, and that's tip money for Doug. For the rest of us, that's a lifetime. That's a lifetime, you know.
Yeah, and by the way, if you want to be really amused, if you follow Auburn and the SEC at large, if Pittman is out, that would be my probably after the season ends. Although they might be thinking it might be the wrong year to enter the coach hiring market. There's so many you're competing with. On the other hand, the Arkansas fans I've talked to my amusement, want Gus Malzahn at Arkansas if he would come. Now, if Gus were to ask me, I'd say, man, you're in the Big 12. You just waxed Oklahoma State. Your stock is high at UCF. Don't play the game you did at Auburn and threaten about a contract at UCF. Stay put there. You can win big. You have a chance to make playoffs if you're good enough, 12-team playoff. But, Rob, do you really want Gus Malzahn to be at Arkansas and make the Auburn game his Super Bowl every single year?
No, I think Gus should go to Texas A&M and bury the program. I mean, and coach there.
There you go.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, but these buyouts are just so crazy out there. Trees don't grow to the sky.
Yeah.
What we're happening now, you know, the power crew has to come out into your backyard and you better put your dog inside or on a chain because they have to cut the dang trees before they fall on the power lines and knock the power out for everybody. I'm going to tell you what's happening right now. It's a seismic retro refit is what's going on right now in college athletics. What we saw happen in College Station last night, and Ross Bjork, again, he should become a professional poker player to keep a straight face trying to explain how, you know, this is not his fault. He put it together. You know, I mean, so the free market, the fans, the A&M fans love Texas A&M. They don't love Ross Bjork. Fans own college athletics.
Rob, before I sign off, and maybe I'm directing this a little bit to those who, for their entertainment pleasure, hopefully not putting their family's well-being at risk, wager on a game or three. I do not. I may or may not have bought a Powerball ticket in the state of Tennessee over the weekend or last week. But when I do that, I know it's a stupid bet. But honest to God, how did we get here that this kind of dominant Alabama team in Tuscaloosa can be played to, was it a 3-point or a 7-point win over Arkansas? And then a pretty shaky until Saturday Auburn team plays the most complete game that you've seen in 3 years. In fact, I was thinking about it that I have not been able to just chill and relax and enjoy a game with an insurmountable lead from the start. It was 21-0 in no time, with thanks to Keontae Scott's going north and south on punt returns finally. But it makes no sense. But there are going to be people that think it's linear and that Auburn can play Alabama down to the wire just because of how those two games happen to go. I have no idea what's going to happen in the Iron Bowl. It's just going to be nice if Auburn can handle business this coming Saturday, New Mexico State, which is a little bit of a hazardous game. That's a 7-3 or an 8-3.
8-3, yeah.
New Mexico State team that you don't want to have a letdown game. But to be potentially 7-4 entering the Iron Bowl, I think you'll have quite the environment a couple of days after we all stuff ourselves with turkey.
Here's something to think about before you go, Doug, is that this is just living proof. Alabama and Auburn, I'll single them out, are living proof of the fact that football is a developmental game. This is not like basketball where these kids, by the time they're 18 years old and they've gotten to college basketball, they've already played 250, 300 ball games. Football, is a developmental game, and you may have played in your lifetime, counting midget ball, you may have played 75 ball games by the time you get to college. And now all of a sudden you're still growing and you're playing against grown men.
Franz, man, that if you didn't say anything else today, that one was brilliant because, and it should be obvious to all of us, but we tend to forget. We read August forecasts of teams that rely too much on how that team looked a year before, and forget the fact that every team is radically different every year for the most part. But, and it's not just individual player development, Franz, to your point. It's also in the case of Auburn and Saban's Alabama, you're putting and trying to get the cohesiveness and execution of new systems, completely new coordinators at both schools, in Alabama in-state rivals. And I've actually marveled. I may be an Auburn guy, but I have marveled at how I think if they go on to win the SEC over Georgia, they don't stumble in 2 weeks, and then they manage to make it to the top of the mountain for the playoffs. This is, to me, indisputably Saban's best coaching job of all of them, and he's had 6 or 7 great coaching. But some years he just used the Colin Powell doctrine of overwhelming force. They showed up and nobody could hang with them. It was kind of like that 2019 LSU team. But yeah, it's finally been joyful and such a pleasure to feel confidence in this Hugh Freeze coaching staff, that they're putting things together. They're adjusting the systems to what these players can be successful at. And it's fun to watch.
It takes time. And, you look at this. I'll throw an example at you. South Carolina right now is 4-6. South Carolina gets Kentucky this week at Willie Bryce.
They're going to kill Kentucky.
I think they will. I think Kentucky's blown. Kentucky fired all its guns at once against Florida and hasn't been the same since. And this is another thing that happens in college football that people don't realize. You get a team that's got a game coming in that you have been thinking about that ball game all year long. And this is, paybacks are hell, baby. Can't wait to get to them. And you get there and you win that ball game, and suddenly you have nothing left in your tank. And football's a funny game. You blow all your emotional bank. Let's say you've got it bank, all this emotion banked here that you've been putting in there. You've been storing it. It's like, putting your money in with Rob and you're watching it grow. Holy cow. And it's all your emotions. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's all gone. What happens after that? It's so hard to get it back once you've shot it all. And that is exactly what happened with Kentucky. They blew it all on Florida, and they have had nothing in the tank since then. Absolutely. Yeah. I think Kentucky is going to finish 6-6. I really do. I think Louisville's going to destroy them.
Yeah.
And, what was it? After Florida, everybody was saying Mark Stoops might be just other than Nick Saban, he might be the smartest guy on the planet. Now up in Kentucky, they're saying, what a dumbass.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Doug pointed this out last week on the show on actually Saturday. He said, you shoot your wad. Did Arkansas blow it all on Florida, winning down there? All that capital, all that.
That was coming.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like we tell clients, do the due diligence, talk about the market and say, listen, there are going to be times when you are so mad at me, you're going to be ready to throw a brick through my window. That's okay. Tape a check to it, sign the check, then throw it through the window, and I'll buy more shares when the market's down.
Rob, and the other thing that will fly over the radar of the casual football fan, I'm not saying that I'm any sort of savant with football, but I talked to some coaches and people that are savants about X's and O's. And that Auburn, Arkansas, the matchup, that game to me was won in the meeting rooms and the game planning during the week, or at least the dominance that Auburn was able to display. And here is part of the reason why. Sam Pittman opted to throw a puppy. I love Travis Williams, but he is not he's not long enough in the tooth to put a defensive plan together and adjust in game. And Hugh Freeze and Montgomery just annihilated him schematically. Said that wide open throw to Javaris Johnson was just, they baited them in trips right. They baited them into overplaying the run there, and it was an easy 6. And they also weren't expecting Auburn to throw on first down. And then on the other side of the ball, yes, he fired Dan Enos, but the guy, Guyton, I don't know much about him, that came in and did well in beating Florida. But that was seeming mostly about Jefferson and Rocket Sanders just had big games. It's going to happen. But it was a mismatch on both sides of the ball coaching that led to that Auburn 48-10 win.
Well, guys, coaching, we look at the coaches and things. And by the way, I think your boy Dan Lanning is going to be the next football coach at Texas A&M.
I don't think they'll write a check, Franz. That's a huge buyout at Oregon.
We'll see. I think that the Aggies have got their mindset on him. The guy that the Aggies really ought to go after, quite frankly, is Lance Leipold. You want to talk about a guy that can stabilize your situation.
Agreed.
And he will win.
And he's affordable.
He is affordable. His buyout's only $23 million. But you look at what's going to happen there is, do you go for sweet and sexy or do you go for what's right for the program? My belief is that, the Aggies will go for sweet and sexy every single time instead of going for what's right for the program. R.C. Slocum was about as charismatic as watching paint peel. But look at what he did. He won ball games and he won conference championships. And they couldn't wait to get rid of R.C. And what a dumb thing that was, because the guy was a great football coach. Not a good one. He was a great football coach. And, you got to get the right fit in here. This is not, this is not about what looks good. It's nice if you've got a coach that looks good. It's nice if you've got a coach that can sit there and charm people. I used to go to Lou Holt's post-practice press conferences at North Carolina State, and he would do magic tricks for us. I mean, my gosh, of course, that was before Lou discovered that he hadn't had a poop in about 3 years and got mean and nasty. But he used to be a fun guy. And if what, I just slapped myself silly in the head. If there's something missing from football, it's the fun. And we don't have fun. And I think you can blame the money for that, because, hey, when you're making $125,000 a year, you can have fun. When you're making $7.5 million a year and they want to fire you, and all of a sudden you've got the boat up on the Coosa River and the house up there, the vacation house up there, and Nick Saban may come puttering by in his boat. You got a lot to lose, and there's no fun in the game anymore.
And even I'll get out of your hair, Rob, but even Jackie Sherrill. No, he didn't win a ton of national championships, but in basically innovating the 12th man tradition at Texas A&M with the special teams. But I don't know that he was what you'd call a sexy hire back when he was hired, but he created toughness. They had some big seasons. He won some games over their arch rival. So, Texas A&M doesn't need me to decide who their short list should be. But it's a critical hire that they got to hope to get a 5 to 10 year runway out of, with a lot of winning with the money they're pouring into it.
Yeah, and I like the comments from Ursel in Northumbria. I don't know if that's in North Mississippi or North Alabama, but Northumbria sounds like the UK. Too much money can kill your drive. It absolutely can. And even Warren Buffett, when asked what he's going to do with all of his money, he said, I'm going to give some to my kids, but I'm not going to love them to death. I'm not going to give them so much money that they quit trying. And this is where we've gotten. There's such a diametrically opposing argument that you can make. Well, we've got to pay because these agents are in your ear telling you you've got to do it. Someone, anybody, call the bluff of one of these coaches or all of them and say, you know what? You think that? Take it.
Rob,
you will learn. You're replaceable.
I'm available if they wish to conduct an experiment on whether $80 million would impact my motivation to work hard.
Yes, because I would be glad to handle that. I'm just going to tell you right now, this is where we are in college athletics. At the University of Oregon and Texas A&M, Doug and Franz, the facilities are so nice. They do everything but brush your teeth and breathe for you. You know what? I like what Tom said. Great comments. Tom in Memphis. Memphis needs to get mean. Tigers should have beaten Mizzou and Tulane. They should have lost to Boise State and North Texas, as well as South Florida and Charlotte. Ugliest winning season. Well, you're 7-2, but I get it. You've got to get your team. When the guys are in there, it's like Disney World, a lot of these college facilities. And you can make it too nice. I was talking to a college football coach the other night about recruiting, and I always go back to these stories. He goes, I love these kids that I go recruit that live in the country. They got to get up at 5 a.m. and go gather firewood and get the stove going and put food on the table. Maybe they don't have a lot, but they've got a family that loves them. They've got God at the center of their lives. He goes, and a work ethic. I'll take that kid any day. I'll take a Spencer Johnson from Silas, Alabama, Choctaw. I'll take that guy any day of the week over some candy ass from a private school that didn't play tough competition, who's not scared about, what if I don't make it in life? What am I going to do? I want that hungry, get after your ass guy. Give me a team full of those. I'll take them any day. Remember Quinn when he was looking to hire Richard Dreyfuss in the movie Jaws before they went out on the boat? He goes, let me see your hands. Looked at him and goes, yeah, they're soft. You've been counting money all your life. Give me that tough guy. Give me good old country boys that have grown up having to work their ass off. I'll whip anybody's ass with a team full of guys like that. And like Franz says, you're not going to have a team full of Boy Scouts. You're going to have a bunch of psychopaths and a few sane leaders like Doug and Franz. I'll just leave it at that.
Let me throw one thing real quick at you before you go, Doug.
Yeah.
I'll bet you I'll put money on the table right now that Jim Harbaugh is coaching the rest of the year. And here's the reason why he will win, even when the Big Ten appeals it and the NCAA just all of a sudden realizes we can't touch him. And that is called due process. He had the Big Ten suspended him without due process, period. And he will win that. They can say, well, it happened on his watch. Maybe it did. But where did the evidence come from? It was illegally obtained.
From Ohio State, possibly?
They're going to say no due process. He will be coaching. Michigan will win the national championship. And you know what Jim Harbaugh is going to do? He's going to go like that to the NCAA and leave.
Yeah. I know this isn't the political war room Rob's running here, but some would say, Franz, that the NCAA in not giving due process is simply mimicking our own Justice Department nationally. That's a whole other discussion. Guys, I always enjoy the banter. Gosh, when you think that this is going to be one of the more calm and boring weeks, then not one, not two, but 3 SEC coaching firings occur, and you've got more to talk about than you've got hours on the show, Rob Browne.
Well, you know what? And Doug, thank you. Unbelievable commentary from you and Franz. So and Doug, we'll have you back on later in the week. And everybody hold this break. Doug Dean, AU Dose in Birmingham. God almighty. This is great stuff. Always every show when we finish, we're gasping for air. Take care, Doug, Franz. Hang with us. We'll be right back. We're going to be joined in just a moment by our good friend Wess Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz over in the capital city, Little Rock. Folks, if you're keeping count, we are 120 hours away from the start of duck season. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break to talk college football. Who's walking the green mile? Great commentary. And by the way, I heard from a friend of Franz's the other day, and he's right. Franz is just turning out so much great content. Guys, you remember the great sports writers you read growing up? They're still out there. Buddy Martin, Franz Beard, Brendan Martin, Ben Troop, Allie Peak Wilbur, GatorBaitMedia.com. Do yourself a favor, subscribe. Gator or not, the places where true grit journalism is alive are like finding those 5-star restaurants that you go to again and again. Cost is only an issue in the absence of any added value. We'll be right back.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you here with Franz Beard on this cold, Monday morning. But, Franz, these buyouts, exactly due process. And we talked, Kevin Skarbinski was on the roundtable with us Saturday morning. The NCAA is a voluntary organization, and you submit to whatever they ask you for. And because I pointed out, the NCAA does not have, again, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge, although my grandfather was a lawyer and the judge and taught law after he went to VMI and Vanderbilt Law School. Go Dars, go Bears. But they don't have subpoena power in the NCAA. In every time they convict people, it's on circumstantial evidence. I think what's going on is Ryan Day in Ohio State don't like the fact that Jim Harbaugh has curb stomped their ass 2 years in a row, won the Big Ten 2 years in a row, and they don't like that. They want him out of the way. And I think the Ohio State minders that are on every TV set, every TV network in America are doing everything they can to get rid of Harbaugh. And I'm with you. There is such a thing as due process. Kelly Leak, exactly, due process. That's what we do in this country. Now, the old country where a lot of us came from, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, they don't have a written constitution to this day. Although Franz, February 27th of 1215, the Magna Carta was put out, that no one is above the law. Within 2 years, that thing was a joke. I mean, it is. We have due process in this country. And they suspended Harbaugh the first 3 games of the year. Now he's on another 3-game suspension. Franz.
Yeah, well, this is the thing is you can go too far. By the way, Zach Arnett just got canned.
Yeah, he got canned before the show. It's sad. I mean, it's Bloody Monday.
Well, it is, and the thing about it is people are looking at this and saying, we got to win right now. And here's the thing: everybody knows there's going to be this gigantic infusion of money from ESPN. ESPN did not go after the Pac-12 for a reason, and they didn't go after them because they wanted the money. They wanted the money for the SEC because they know that the $17 million difference, which is what it would be with just the original 14 teams, the $17 million difference would bring it up to about $75 million a year for each school. But now you got Texas and Oklahoma, and you have added value, tremendous added value, because now all of a sudden you have taken basically 37 million people. Okay. That's what you've got added in.
You see the back? You see my map behind me?
Oh, yes, I do.
Texas, Barnwood Brenda, my good friend down in Batesville, Mississippi, made that for me, hand carved out of cypress. And anybody listening or watching that wants one of these for $800, you can get one of these SEC maps. Texas, Oklahoma. By the way, friends, a little bit of trivia. From Altus, Oklahoma to Lubbock, Texas, there's more cotton grown between those two towns than anywhere in the world, with the exception of, as a guy in my world history class once asked our professor, the Yangtze River Valley in China. Yangtze, this fella called it. We were like, the Yangtze River.
Yes.
Listen, you're right. We know there's, as far as of this morning, I haven't checked the turnstile count. There's at least 30 million people in Texas at the latest count, and 5 million plus in Oklahoma. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to bring in Wess Moore, who covers Arkansas, the UCA Bears for ESPN Plus there, where Coach Harold Horton led them one time to 38 straight victories, 3 national championships. But it's also home, friends, of one of the greatest high school football mascots, the Wampus Cats, over in Conway, Arkansas. And my favorite name, though, maybe for a mascot in college athletics, Delta State, the Fighting Okra. I want a T-shirt from the Fighting Okra, which is where Auburn defensive coordinator Ron Roberts got his start with the creeper defense. And Franz, let's get Wess involved. ESPN 103.7 The Buzz over in Little Rock. And Wess, what a day so far. Monday, bloody Monday. Jimbo Fisher was canned last night. Zach Arnett gone this morning. I think this is going to happen, a few more of these this week, because of the December signing period coming up. Everybody knows what happened to Auburn when they didn't hire Brian Harsin until Christmas Eve, and they missed the December signing period, and he didn't have a class till February of 21. And here it is, only one player from his first class is even still on the team, Jarquez Hunter out of Philadelphia, Mississippi. But let's talk about the Hogs and everything going on in Arkansas.
Do we have to?
That's funny.
Hey, trust me, I'm an Auburn fan, man. I've been walking the edge, having to be talked off by counselors and hostage negotiators for the last few years. I know how you feel.
Yeah. Besides Coach Watch, I would imagine we're moving on to basketball on the radio show for the most part. You know, and that's a good thing. Arkansas plays tonight basketball, and they play again Friday. So we get 2 basketball games, and I think you saw it at halftime of the Auburn game. Razorback fans have moved on, and they definitely moved on from the stadium at halftime, and I don't blame them. I would have left too. It was so bad that, you know, I take pride in watching these games, going back, rewatching these games, trying to figure out what went wrong. I did the UCA football game, and that game started at 4. And so I was able to watch the first hour of the Razorback game, and that was all I needed to watch. It was atrocious, and I didn't even go back and watch the other 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I'm not going back and watching. I'm not going to waste my time, and that's what it was. It was a waste of time. Those players didn't show up. The coaches did not have them ready, and they got embarrassed. I hope they got embarrassed. But the way they played, they didn't care. So maybe they didn't get embarrassed, because you got to care to get embarrassed. But it was pathetic, and it's a shame. But I think that, you know, the writing's on the wall. When I have non-hardcore football fans, the casual football fan saying, well, they got to fire Sam Pittman, right? That's when the writing's on the wall. When just your common average Joe or Jane knows Sam Pittman's got to leave. And no one wants to see Sam Pittman leave. And guys, you and I brought it up on this show. Sam Pittman reminds me a lot of the Mike Anderson situation with basketball. He got him out of a huge hole. He's a great guy. But always when they said something great about Mike Anderson, the next word was but.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Great guy, but he's not going to take him to the next level. And that's what you got to go out and find, that coach that can take them from, at least they're not. This is a better job today than when Sam Pittman took the job after Chad Morris. He has built a foundation. He's got them to respectability. Now it's time to go find the coach that can take them to the next level. The Eric Musselman for Arkansas football.
Hey, Wes, here's what I got to say about Arkansas. Y'all are like Florida. Florida is lest we forget, Florida is a golf, baseball, gymnastics, track and field, and swimming school. Arkansas is a baseball, cross country, track and field, basketball school. I mean, football is what we do until we get to the sports where we can actually win something in.
Yeah, but that doesn't fly around here because
I know
August, September. Yeah, you want everything. And look, Arkansas, you got some older people that have been around. They remember the 60s and the heyday of the 70s. And Arkansas has won before, and they want to get it back to where Arkansas can win again.
Yeah, I agree with that. I what I was saying was, we tease about that because we're sitting there wondering. I mean, you look what Florida did. Florida had a goal line stand, which was terrific, and they forced a punt and a field goal. And everything else LSU did was for a touchdown. And it was and we're sitting there thinking, do we need, I think we need a calculator to get all the missed tackles counted up and that no-show defense. When you score 35 points and you gain 488 yards, you ought to win football games. And Florida didn't. And you wonder what's going on here. And just like with Arkansas, you're wondering, how is it? We had talked earlier. I think Arkansas, remember, I don't know if you remember me saying last week, but I thought that Florida was Arkansas's Super Bowl. Now, how do you win the week after you've had your Super Bowl? And that's what we found out.
Yeah, you don't. You got to treat that as a playoff game. And that was the first round of the Razorbacks playoffs to get to a bowl. And they failed to show up for the second round of the playoffs. And you were right. That's all they cared about. They put all their chips into the pot. And they won that one hand, but they lost the next hand. And they're done.
Yeah. Kentucky, I earlier in the show with Doug Dean was on, Florida against Kentucky. Kentucky put all of their emotional bank. They emptied it for the Florida game, and they've had nothing in the tank since then. And I think Kentucky's going to finish 6-6 after starting out the season with people saying that, boy, when Nick Saban retires, you got your boy there, Mark Stoops. He's a genius. Now up at Kentucky, they're saying, do we really have a genius, or do we have a guy that can get us to the Music City Bowl every year?
One thing I'm noticing here, you talk about, and I heard this is something, Wes, that I heard from a lot of my Arkansas friends over the weekend. That's exactly it. Everybody likes Sam Pittman. He's a nice guy. I want a guy, like Nick Saban or Kirby Smart. It's just relentless. And what I see with Sam Pittman, and this is just my opinion, and we have you, Wes, on every week, and Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net. Y'all are professional, true grit journalists. Your job is not to be friends with the coach and all that. It's to tell it like you see it. I said this was my gut reaction in watching that game. I was like, my God, he's lost this team. You can't fix this. It's just broken. And as much as we like Sam Pittman personally, this is just my opinion. The team looked like they quit on him. And after the game, I mean, they were out there cutting up, laughing and talking to the players at Auburn. I know that's part of sportsmanship and all, but I want a locker room full of guys that are in tears and smashing lockers and breaking stuff after a loss, okay? I don't want when apathy sets in, you're done. I would go get a guy that understands the culture of Lance Leipold is the perfect hire for Arkansas. That's what you have, money, you have all that stuff at Arkansas. But man, I'd go get me a guy like a Lance Leipold. I really like him if you're making a move. But Sam Pittman looked completely lost on the game, on the sidelines, and we thought it was a false positive or a dead cat bounce when they went and beat Florida. That's exactly what it was. But I like this question. Fran in Memphis says, how did Arkansas fall so far from the momentum that they built? I understand the offensive coordinator thing didn't work out, but the assistant coaches, everyone failed to get that team ready, and ultimately the players themselves didn't have enough pride. And I know we had Nathan Perotti on the show earlier in the season, a former walk-on player, special teams, defensive back at Arkansas, and he said, NIL changes everything. Things start falling apart. You get a locker room full of guys. If they're making a lot of money, they'll check out. That's what you got to guard against, and that's what coaches have to guard against, and they failed to do that, Wes. That's just my opinion. Wes, I know you played college football. You're a very competitive guy. You get it. Am I right on what I just said, or am I, drinking too much coffee? But I think I'm right.
No, you're right. They checked out for that game. Arkansas has some big-time issues on the offensive line, and they got away with it at Florida because for some reason Florida did not put a spy on KJ Jefferson. And that's a head-scratcher, and that's a Florida problem. That's not an Arkansas problem because they got to Jefferson. They sacked Jefferson, but when he was able to escape the pocket, he bailed Arkansas out, and they were able to make it just enough plays. And then, of course, the defense scored a touchdown against Florida. And I think it was a perfect storm. That was Arkansas' Super Bowl. Florida was coming off the Georgia game. They didn't show up until, it's 14-0. And then Florida was a better team, rallied back, took the lead, but Arkansas got a little magic and beat them in overtime. Well, that didn't work this week because Auburn got to KJ Jefferson, and then they had a spy. And every time KJ tried to get out of the pocket, there was the spy waiting on him, and he couldn't run around and make the plays he's been making. The head scratcher for me is the defense. This defense has been what Arkansas could hang their hat on all year. They kept them in games. Even when the offense was struggling, the defense kept it close enough to when the offense finally got something going, made a little run, they were able to be in the game. Arkansas's been in every game this year. Really, they've been in every game in the Sam Pittman era until, Saturday. And that to me, I don't know. I don't know what happened defensively, why they weren't able to slow Auburn down at all. And it was just bam, bam, bam. And next thing you know, they rolled over and quit. And that's the strange thing. Travis Williams, defensive coordinator, they love. He's an Auburn grad. He coached at Auburn. This was a huge game for him to get to play his alma mater. I thought the defense was going to rally around him and play a great game, and they laid an egg. And maybe that's all it is. They laid an egg. That happens sometimes, and then you throw in a bad offense, and you get what you get.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? That was the previous worst loss of the season for Arkansas was the 12-point loss to Texas A&M. They lost by 3 at Alabama, lost by 3 on the last play of the game at LSU. They're so close, yet so far away. I sound like a Carole King song, but I mean they were. And this is mental, Arkansas, don't y'all think, as much as anything?
Remember the A&M game? Arkansas was down, I think, 14 at the half. They came out, got a pick 6. Then they got a fumble. Arkansas had the ball, threw a jump ball in the end zone that should have been caught to tie the game. And the receiver dropped it, and they settled for a field goal, and it was a 4-point game in the third quarter going to the fourth quarter.
Guys, there is that old saying, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Yeah. And Florida's got the same problem. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. You look at the last 2 seasons, the number of ball games Florida shoulda, coulda, or woulda won. And it's staggering. You look at Arkansas these last 2 years as well. A lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas in there. And we're not looking for shoulda, woulda, coulda. We're looking for, can you do it now? And it's not happening. And you got to admit, I think you would have to admit, Wes, the money has changed everything. It really has, because now people are saying, people, when a coach was making $300,000 or $400,000, people were willing to give him some time. But when you're paying him $7.5 million or $8 million or whatever, it's hard to be patient, because people sit there and say, I'm sweating a car payment and this guy's making $8 million. I do a better job on my job than he does on his. That's the mentality. And goodness, I wrote once years ago that there should be a rule that should say that no coach should make more money than the president of the United States.
Well,
when you're on that, let me ask you that. I've never floated this out to anybody, and you guys have been around a long time. Back before NIL, and I'm not going to pretend, and some people want to bury their head in the sand, but players got paid, and a lot of times they got paid on Sunday after a game, and you got paid by your performance. I know some guys that the more yards they rushed for, the more touchdowns they got, the more money that was in that brown paper bag, that McDonald's bag Sunday morning outside their door.
The Folgers coffee cup.
Yeah. That doesn't happen anymore because it's NIL and it's legal. They already got their money. You think that has anything to do with it?
Yes, absolutely it does.
I got to tell you a little story. Back to my days in the ACC, I'm back in the 70s, I'm visiting over in one of the ACC towns with a basketball player I know. And we go to his mailbox, and he picks out this brown envelope. It says High Point, North Carolina on it. He opens it up, and there's $500 in there, all in 10s, 5s, and 20s. I said, goodness, who sent it? He says, I don't know. I said, is it just kind of random like this? He said, no, I get one every Tuesday. It's in the mail. I said, always from High Point? He said, no. He says, last week it was from Greensboro. The week before it was from Asheville, and goes on and on. And I said, well, who sends it? He says, I don't know. And I said, does the coach know about it? He said, nope. Are you going to tell him? He says, nope. And of course, it was brilliant because it's all in cash, and it's all in 5s, 10s, and 20s. You get a football player or a basketball player who goes into town, and all of a sudden he's throwing $100 bills around, and he's got everybody's attention. But a kid that comes in and he pays for a pizza with a 10, a 5, and 2 1s, nobody's going to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But it happened, just like you said, Wes.
Yeah. Hey, Wes, I'll tell you something. Carl Childers just commented on the show in Benton, Arkansas. I'll coach for potted meat and soda crackers. That would be a pretty cheap hire to have a coach. But I'll say this. It's absolutely why you've got the problems that you have. Because, again, it's about behavioral psychology. Okay, we need B.F. Skinner to be on this show. By the way, Wes and Franz, I was in the Skinner box last week. That's what we call Vanderbilt's new retrofitted stadium while they're doing the construction. It's like a Skinner box. And getting out, it took 45 minutes. There were gates everywhere. You can't go here. You can't go there. Franz and Wes. And Wes, it's exactly what the problem is. You cannot have a bunch of kids that are 17 and 18 showing up, major college programs, thinking they were born on third base and hit a triple before they've done anything. You should all these contracts should read. They're incentive based. You don't perform, you don't get paid. The same way I've said for years we should be doing with college football coaches' contracts. I know there's incentives, but it's always if they do this or they do that. But they've got that massive base of $5 to $10 million. You can destroy people's ability to be hungry. Smoking too much weed causes failure to thrive syndrome. Look at all these people. I mean, that just sit around and don't do anything. That's why wealthy people use age-banded trust and incentive-based trust. Otherwise, their children would never try. That's exactly what we have going on in college athletics, Wes. And it ain't going to change until the adults in the room quit letting the tail wag the dog.
May have to go back to the old days. Just pay them under the table.
Yes. Hey,
Well,
the big Folgers coffee can. That's how it used to be done.
Years ago, I wrote this. I said that, here's what they ought to do. They ought to say, for example, in the SEC, every head coach gets a base salary of $1 million. Of course, that screwed up my theory that nobody should get paid more than the president, but give them all that. And then say, okay, you get $250,000 every time you win a football game. And you'd be amazed. And if you win the conference, we'll give you another $1 million and so forth. And put it all on that. I guarantee you, if you did that, boy, you'd see some coaching like you've never seen before, because now all of a sudden, hey, I win 8 ball games at $250,000 a piece. Whoa, that changes life, doesn't it? That all of a sudden that's $2 million more than I can take home. I can buy the wife her little fur coat for Christmas with that.
Yeah. I know, friends, look, we just run out of time. This is, look, Wes Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock. Let people know how they can follow you. Love having you on. We're going to be talking a lot about basketball, and you're right, man. You can't care more than the players care, and they didn't look like they were checked in, and that's inexcusable.
I think Wes is the part of this.
Oh, well, we lost Wes. Okay. There he is. Yeah, Wes. Yeah, Wes is back with us. Wes, let people know how they can follow you. I just made a comment that the fans can't care more than the players and coaches care. And when you have that problem, as Roseanne and Anna used to say on Saturday Night Live Weekend Update with Dan Aykroyd, you got a problem, and that's they got to fix it.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. I got disconnected when I went through the parking lot, the parking garage. We're at the Touchdown Club today, and got Marty McGee from Marty and McGee. We've got Ryan McGee speaking today.
Yeah.
So good morning. Anyway, no, you can go follow us on Twitter, Wes_Moore, 2 S's in Wes and 2 O's in More. You can go download the Buzz app, or you can go online, 1037thebuzz.com, and listen to the show. We got Clint Sterner coming up, and also Ryan McGee will be joining us. So big day today at the Little Rock Touchdown Club.
Hey, Wes, thank you so much. Y'all have a great time. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks,
right,
Wes. Look forward to seeing you.
You bet. All right, great stuff as always, friends. And, man, folks, look, you want true grit journalism, great content, GatorBaitMedia.com. Franz Beard, Buddy Martin, Ben Troop, Brendan Martin, great, unbelievable production crew down there, putting out great content about the Gators, the SEC, and college sports nationally. It's great stuff to keep up with. Okay, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We had Veterans Day Saturday, but that's not the only time you give thanks to the people who provide us with the very freedoms that some of us take for granted. But Franz, Wes, me, never have and never will. We are so blessed. Go out and bless others. Until then, we are going to check out. Got a great show in store for you tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Support our sponsors. We're out of here.